first round of the playoffs.
There's a lot of good stuff going on there. I mean, you look at the Broncos today, obviously against the Chiefs team resting most of their starters, but a 38-0 is still a dominant performance no matter what. I'm looking forward to seeing that Vance Joseph defense go up there, Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, see how that matches up. What about you, Nate? What are we looking at?
Listen, the Broncos finishing the season the way that they did, regardless of who they were playing against when it comes to the Chiefs resting their guys, that's great for their confidence. And I love what Sean Payton did. He's saying, I want my young guys to go out there, have a dominant performance, so they can look in the mirror and feel like they are the best team going into the postseason. It's a lot of mental that you have to play when it comes to these young guys going into their first postseason, speaking specifically of their quarterback, Bo Nix. Now, when it comes to the NFC, that fifth seed that is going...
All right. Well, I want to keep it on the Denver Broncos, not go to the NFC. But, yeah. That game was awesome. Listen, they were obviously playing backups, which we all understand and can appreciate. But the way in which they went after it, the level of intensity that they played with, we saw other teams that really needed that win, that played bad teams and whatever, and they came out with no energy. They were lackluster. They looked disorganized. I won't even name names of the other teams because I don't want to trigger other fan bases. So you'll be the judge of which teams you think came up all, bad. But the Broncos didn't. The Broncos came out just on fire, honestly. And what Bo Nix did especially has nothing to do with them playing backup defensive players, because the throws that he was making, I don't care whose defense, unless it's like this insanely dominant pass rush or whatnot, the throws that he was making was amazing. I mean, it was truly extraordinary. That 47-yard pass to Sutton, then that his second touchdown pass to Sutton, where he was moving in the pocket, and then he stepped up, tight window throw, on the move, off one leg. Like, again, that has nothing to do with whoever's playing defense. That play has nothing to do with anything. Right? Like, that is just a special play, a special throw. I wrote it down because he had obviously 18 straight completions, and then the final one was, that was a tough one, but that was his first incompletion. But at that point, he had 18 straight completions, and it was 215 yards and 3 touchdowns. These weren't just little dink and dunk things here. I mean, like, he was obviously just letting it rip. I mean, obviously, there's a little luck. That Valet touchdown, again, was wild. You will always need a little luck in football. But that was pretty extraordinary as well, which I think then was that the pass that he then broke the record, which, again, this is a weirdly specific record, but the most passing touchdowns by a rookie at home, just add the month to the most passing touchdowns by a rookie, whose birthday is in February. It's like, once you kind of narrow it down a little bit, it loses its luster, but still impressive nonetheless, considering people kept acting like he was going to be a trash quarterback. But overall, obviously 26 for 29, 321 yards, 11.1 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, and a 152.4 rating. 7 carries and 47 yards rushing. Oh, right. Even when he had 18 straight completions, he also had 47 rushing yards as well. And what I also loved about this is they only had 5 penalties. 5 penalties. That's awesome. I am such a penalty stickler. And the Ravens, who dominate the Browns, all right, they had, I wrote it down for them, 10 penalties for 83 yards. So it's just like the fact that they can't even keep things buttoned up against a terrible team who they obviously steamrolled as well is bad to me. That is not good. You're not going to be able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs or the Buffalo Bills if you're going to get all those penalties. So the fact that the Broncos still played a tight game, even in a blowout like this, I think is really awesome. And again, it has to be put into context. This was the backup Chiefs. This was not the real Kansas City Chiefs. But I'm still just hyper focused on the team individually and what they did, the intensity, the momentum that they built, what they were asking Bo Nix to do. I just think it was really impressive. I really, really do. They didn't put the league on notice. They didn't show everyone what they can do necessarily because, again, you're playing backups. But at the same time, they did signal, okay, this team is for real. This is not just some team that's just like lucky to be there in the playoffs. They didn't just kind of limp into the playoffs. they belong in the playoffs. I made a similar video about the Washington Commanders and Jane Daniels about how that team, like the Commanders, they belong in the playoffs. We occasionally have teams, not occasionally, pretty much every single year, we have teams that make it in the playoffs because their division is really bad or someone's got to get in via the wild card. And it's just like, yeah, you got in the playoffs, but like, let's be real here. You obviously are not looking too good. That's not the case with the Denver Broncos. And even though they played, again, the backups, I still feel as though that they really kind of solidified that. I'm going to go into deeper dives throughout this week and talk about Bo Nix and kind of how great he's been and everything that they've asked him to. I kind of have all my notes. I did a deep dive and kind of pulled some stuff that I'm really, really excited to go through. But I'll save that more for these next few days to come. And then we can also talk about going up against the Bills. But I just kind of wanted to keep this video more specifically to this game and kind of what the playoff potential is. It's obviously going to be a tough game. No matter who the Broncos played, it was always going to be tough if you're going to be the 7th seed, whether it was going to be the Chiefs first round or the Bills. Although I think they would have been better served to actually go up against the Chiefs just because of how well they know that team. And that's where it's frustrating. It's a little, I for all my playoff videos, it's like I want all the perfect matchups and the perfect paths, and it's frustrating that the Broncos couldn't get a little bit higher. That because I really want to see the Chargers. Honestly, this division I find fascinating. I really want to see the Chargers and the Broncos kind of make some moves in the playoffs, and I just want to see what they're capable of doing. And so it would have been nice for them to be 5-6, and then have the Steelers be 7. Then you have the Bills playing, and then depending on whether you're 5 or 6. Would then, maybe you're going to be playing the Ravens, or like everyone wants to play right now is the Texans, and they're one of those teams that did not pound their chest and say we're in the playoffs, let's go. Like that's a perfect team. That's a perfect example right now. Like everybody wants to play the Texans. Same thing with the Packers. Everybody wants to play the Packers. Those two teams, people are like, oh, can we play them? Can we play them? It's who you want to play. And so it's a little bit of a bummer. I would have loved to have been able to see some of that matchup, so you would increase the likelihood of getting some other interesting matchups like the Broncos versus the Chiefs, or the Broncos versus the Chargers in a potential playoff game. Again, you would definitely need a lot of these interesting upsets to make some of these things happen, which you unfortunately in the NFL you always need to get some of the really awesome matchups. Oftentimes you do need a couple crazy upsets. So but yeah, I mean, we know the playoffs are always filled with upsets, so who's to say it's not the Broncos versus the Bills? I mean, it's I don't know when these games will be happening, in what order, but you should be rooting, I guess, for the Ravens to beat the Steelers, because if the Steelers upset the Ravens, then it actually technically, but not really at all, would decrease the likelihood of the Broncos beating the Bears, but actually not at all. Yeah, I'm super excited for the playoffs. I mean, no one thought that the Broncos were going to be able to even win 6 games, let alone actually get to the playoffs. Have Bo Nix prove to be a franchise quarterback, and like Tony Romo said at the top of the broadcast, he was like, Bo Nix, he ain't no rookie anymore, and I love that. I absolutely love that, because I think it's very, very accurate. He graduated from the rookie role, and again, even in a game like this, really proves it. And I think it was really impressive. I mean, this game was such a blowout. Maybe for those people that are actually in Denver, my broadcast ended at the 4th quarter. They were like, oh, the Broncos are crushing the Chiefs, so we're going to switch broadcast to a little bit more of a competitive game. And I'm like, I have my notes and stuff, and I'm like writing stuff down, and I'm doing some research for like a future video, because the game is over, and so I am looking at it, but I still want to know what's going to happen in this game. I wanted to see Carson Wentz play and stuff, and then they're just like, we're going to switch the game right now to a little bit more interesting of a game. And it still wasn't that interesting, because the Chargers, convincingly beat the Raiders as well. So it was like, come on, man, like, what are we doing here? Just let me keep watching the Broncos. But all in all, a great day. And I just think some of these teams going into the playoffs, yeah, they made the playoffs, but they just don't feel as good. If you're a Buccaneers fans, I'm sorry, you that was not a good game against the Saints. The Packers against the Bears, that was not a good game. for them. I'm trying to think of any other quick examples off the top of my head where you actually had like legitimate players playing. Those are the games that stuck out more than anything to me. And so the Broncos easily could have won this game, but it could have been a weird game, right? It could have been, I don't know, man. It could have been a wonky 14-3 or something, right? Like it could have just been a weird game where like Bo Nix threw 2 interceptions, but he did also throw for 3 touchdowns. Like you easily could have had that. We see these games unfold every single week throughout the season, no matter who you're playing, whether you're playing the worst team in the NFL who wants to lose every single game so they can get the #1 overall pick, or a team that's resting all their starters. And so the fact that they still played an awesome, complete game, start to finish, top to bottom, left and right, I do think is pretty cool, especially considering just who this team is, where this team is at, and what this team was predicted to do. So it's all validation, and I look forward to continue to talk about it more this week. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Denver Broncos and this performance against the Kansas City Chiefs, we'll say, and Bo Nix's record performance? And also, I think he ended up tying, because again, it cut the broadcast, so I don't know, but he tied Peyton Manning's, I guess, like most efficient game in Broncos history. I don't know if that ended up if that stood or not. But let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.